Hey everyone out there, I hope you're having a good night. Today's video is going to focus on the psychology of door knocking and asking questions. It's something I actually have wanted to cover for a little while, but I guess sort of found the right angle to go about this on the channel. I like to do sort of educational type videos like this when I can, just to bring more understanding to certain subjects, and it also addresses some of the way that I approach my channel. So let's start. I'm going to start with a little background about myself though, so you'll understand a little bit more about me and where I'm coming from regarding this, which you'll see the importance of it in a little bit later. But anyway, when I was younger, I was always more of a shy and timid type personality. So people tend to have an upper hand when dealing with me with anything in life because I was more agreeable. So you would say the people that were interacting with me sort of got the upper hand. When I was a kid and I was with someone else and they would say, oh, do you want to play this game? Maybe I would be more apt to not be as voiced as what I want to do and be more considerate of that person. Not necessarily because I was more considerate of that person, but maybe I was just more agreeable and I didn't have, let's say, the guts to assert what I wanted. And kind of even into my teen years, I was a little bit, I was, becoming more and more outspoken, but I was still, generally agreeable. So, for instance, maybe if you're out at a restaurant and, your waiter serves you a meal and it's, not horrendous, but it's not, not that great. And you're kind of looking at it and you're like, well, it's kind of messed up. I really don't want to eat it. But they're like, so how's your meal? And then you would be like, yeah, it's good, even though you're kind of like, no, it's not good. But because it's sort of passable, you don't want to create a situation over it, and you're just going to deal with the, let's say, the lower standards than you were expecting just because you are not confident enough to voice your opinion in that social situation. So that was more so me. When I was a lot younger, I was just non-confrontational, and if you're really non-confrontational, a lot of times you have a tendency to be passive-aggressive. You don't want to deal with something, and then you want to talk about people behind their back, or, oh, that was bad, instead of actually dealing with the situation head-on. So that was me in my past. Fast forward to me over the last 4 years-ish is when I really started to dramatically change in that area. And especially since have always been into business, one of the things that you learn really fast is if you're not assertive and you're afraid to ask people questions, you're not going to get very far in business. Because not only do you have to have the audacity to say, hey, will you accept a lower price for this? You have to haggle and negotiate. You're basically saying, somebody has a sticker on an item in a yard sale or something, and it says $5. That sticker says, we want $5. And then you're thinking, well, I really don't want to pay $5. So should I ask them to accept less? So you're really putting yourself out there to ask for a lesser price on something. And then when you're selling, if somebody asks you, hey, will you accept a lower price? Well, if you're more agreeable, as long as you can make even like a sliver of a profit, you might be more apt to say, you can have it for that price. Or are you going to have the audacity to say, no, I reject your offer, this is what I want. So naturally, in the progression of understanding business, you have to be more assertive, or people are just going to walk over you. You're not going to make as much money, and that doesn't make you, a meanie or anything. It's just, voluntarily asking questions to get, more desirable results. Let's sort of put it that way. So, me over the past 4 years, I began to ask more, let's say, audacious questions, more challenging questions. That people may look at these questions and say, that's a little extreme. I'm going to tell you no. But I keep trying and keep trying. And as you build your confidence, you can actually ask for more. And sometimes you think you can't ask for more, but you actually can. So one of those things, that's how over the last several years, it's really changed my perspective on a lot of things. Because also, when you allow other people to convince you that you shouldn't ask certain questions, when there's certain stereotypes or things in society says, you know what, just don't ask that question. And maybe some of your friends are saying, don't ask these questions. And then, you always hear that there's phrases like, when you go into a bar, there's certain things you don't talk about. You don't talk about religion, and you don't talk about politics. And we have all these sections in society of where you can't ask certain questions, you can't talk about certain things. So I see a lot of areas in life where your lack of success, not always, but partly sometimes, can be from you allowing other people just to convince you that you should stop asking questions. And because you stop asking questions, you can't really progress into the big, amazing accomplishments you want to achieve, because you're not interacting enough with those who are around you to achieve that goal, whatever that goal may be. So that's one of the areas of my life that I've really turned around over the last several years, and I'm not as afraid to ask questions. Now, obviously, I was way on the end of hardly asking any questions at all to get desirable results, which is also just a survival tactic. I mean, if you're going to make a big purchase, like you're going to buy a car or something, you should be asking a lot of questions. Otherwise, you may just drive off with something that you paid way too much money for, and it's going to keep you down. It's going to keep you from success because you keep running out of money because you didn't ask enough questions. So there's a lot of ways it can keep you down. It can keep you down in relationships, but we're not going to go, into all that. Just wanted to create a little bit of a framework here. But obviously, you can ask questions that are too small. Say like self-esteem type questions, like if you're always asking your friends, am I worthless? Am I useless? Am I just a bad person? And they keep have to telling you no, you don't have to keep asking me that. It's like you just don't have to ask that. You're like undershooting here. You don't have enough confidence. Now, whereas if you're asking questions that are like, say, over the deep end, it's like, hey, can I have, I think I deserve it. Can I have can I have all your money? It's like, you can deal without it. It's like, I just want all your money. You're like, no, that's absurd. I'm not going to give you all my money. Why would I give you all my money? Why would you even ask that? So you can be on the very low end of asking questions, and you can be on the very, let's say, the cocky end of asking questions. And you don't really want to be on either extreme, but at the core, you're not imposing yourself on somebody. You're still asking a question. So whether it's whether you're undershooting or it's a bit cocky, there's still questions. So if people take offense to questions generally, I find that you're not going to get very far with those individuals in many areas. I try to be the individual where people can ask me questions and I don't take offense just because they ask a question. Even if I completely disagree with them, their perspective on, say, major issues like religion or politics, which are major issues. So when somebody asks me a question, I try not, I don't generally, I can't remember, I don't want to present that I'm perfect, so I'm not going to say I've never taken offense to anything or I never do, but generally speaking, I can't remember the last time I've taken offense to somebody that asked me a question, except maybe, somebody does it in a provocative way and they're using a question to try to get at you, and, you may have a little bit of a snarky kind of response to it, or, you just take a little bit of a offense or you're annoyed by it. I'm not immune from that. I've taken the bait before, let's say. So, there's extremes and there's this balance to asking questions. You don't want to be on the low end and you don't want to be on the high end. So how do you find the proper value of the questions that you should be asking. And I can't give you the magic answer for that because it's something that you have to keep exploring. So to use my wonderful subscribers as an example to that, say I had something I really wanted to share with you all. And also, sometimes the questions that you can ask is not like an absolute. It's not based on what the value of what I want is. A lot of it is the value of the person you're asking, what they value your request as. So there's a little bit of at least two different things going on there, where there is some value, like kind of, how do I want to say that? Some questions have, certain value from the person asking them, like more concrete things, but then there's also the perception of the other person. So if I say to my subscribers, let's say I posted the video that says, and the title's like, important update, please watch. And it's like, I really am saying, like, if you ever clicked on one of my videos, like, this is the one I want you to click on. This is the one I want you to watch. And, a lot of things play into that. Have I cried wolf too many times? And people look at that and go like, he's fooled us once, I'm not going to click that video again. And then, what if I hadn't? And people see that and they're like, yeah, I'll see what he has to say. And then there's the length of the video. And what if I, started on the video and say, I want 2 minutes of your time because I have to say something really important, and I want everybody that is a viewer of my channel to hear this, and I want 2 minutes. Based on my experience, with my subscriber base, I could safely say that the majority of them would say, yeah, JD, I can give you 2 minutes. If it's really important and you're not pulling our leg, I can give you 2 minutes, not a problem. And some people would be like, okay, I'll give you 2 minutes, but it better be good. And then some people may say, I ain't giving you 2 minutes, and they click out of the video. But generally, I'm speaking here that 2 minutes for people who are reasonable, they'll give you 2 minutes if it's something really important. Now, what if I said, I have something really important to say. I want you to give me 2 hours of your undivided attention because I really have to share this information, and I need 2 hours. Then at that point, I think there would be a small portion of people that would do that, but generally, once you're up to, say, 2 hours, I think a lot of people would say, JD, maybe I'd even love to give you 2 hours, but I don't have 2 hours of my life to give you to this thing that you want to discuss. And some people would say 2 hours, forget that, and they're gone. I think quite a few people, would say that. So, what can you ask generally? What is reasonable? And that's something that you have to find based on the goal you're trying to achieve. Could I ask for 5 minutes? Given my standing, just my understanding of my subscriber base and the type of topics and videos I do, I think most people would give me 5 minutes. I mean, if you're still watching this video, you're probably one of the ones that would give me a little bit more than 5 minutes, or maybe even closer to the 2 hours. But to be reasonable, based on, let's say, the general overall audiences, let's say, I don't know, for lack of better words, let's say the general cumulative time frame of everybody put together of what is reasonable to ask is sort of like a group. You may come up with something that's maybe, I don't know, I'm just roughly estimating now, say 7 to 8 minutes. I don't know, just a guess, because I don't really know what the answer is. I can only guess what the answer is based on the information that I have been building, that I have seen over time. And that's just a way of saying that tweaking that and figuring out what types of questions are going to yield the most results without being too low or cocky. You want to try to find that happy medium. So I know that was a long sort of introduction to spring into the topic of door knocking, because there's a lot that's going on there when you're knocking on someone's door. And I guess a little disclaimer there, I don't knock on people's doors if they have a no trespassing sign. Generally, that's just a no-brainer that they don't want you on your property. So I would take note and, not do that. And I usually don't knock on the doors of people that have no soliciting stickers or something like that either. That's kind of a topic for another time, because you can present yourself in different ways of what you want to do without actually just trying to get something from the person. Like if you knock on their door and say, have you lost anything? I'll look for it for free. Then you're offering them something. You're not saying, hey, can I just dig in your yard and keep all the stuff? So even someone with a no soliciting sticker, if you're going to present it differently and you're more of an outgoing person and you're not worried about keeping everything, then you can present yourself in a way that you're not soliciting from that person, and through the presentation of offering them something, there may be some reciprocity there of where they will basically in the end allow you to solicit, hey, can I keep a few things that I find? So there's a fine line there, but no trespassing I stay away from, no soliciting. In the past, I've generally stayed away from it, and I still generally do because, there's other options. You can always go to another house, but no soliciting. I still don't see an issue knocking on people's doors if you're going to, frame it a certain way and be open and generous with the person of the door you're knocking on. So, first of all, as sort of a baseline thing, if somebody tells you no, sometimes it's just because they're, they may be leery of strangers or just not want you on the property, and they tell you, just no, you can't metal detect my yard. So that's just going to happen sometimes. There's not going to be any, deep reasoning or anything behind it. And then a lot of the people who are sort of undecided and even say yes, a lot of it's because of how they perceive the hobby differently. Now, I've actually noticed this is quite common when you knock on someone's door, is a lot of people say, well, sure, you can go ahead and look around the yard, but I don't think you're going to find anything. So those types of people are giving you the permission sort of based on this preconceived idea that you're not really going to find anything interesting or of value in their yard. So for some people, that's actually the reason they tell you yes. If they had the preconceived idea of that you may find, like a rare artifact or say like a rare coin or something, or a gold ring that may have a value of several $100s, those people's tone might be a little bit different. So there are rare circumstances where if people are asking what you found when they had already given you permission, and they usually don't tell you, they don't ask for anything like, can I keep anything? But they don't really say, that you can keep everything you find. They just don't expect you to find much, which is kind of like a default. They say, yeah, you can look around, which is kind of basically lumped in with meaning like, yeah, you can keep what you find too, because I don't expect you to find anything. But some people that have that attitude, if they do ask you what you found so far and you tell them what they found so far, and it is a little bit substantial, all of a sudden it hits them. It's like, whoa, there's actually stuff in my yard and I didn't expect it. So some of them may backpedal a little bit and be like, well, can I keep some of it or something like that? You just never know. Now, some people are just, I get this once in a while, which is really cool. Some of them are just really happy to have someone who appreciates the history and who's willing to put in the work to keep the stuff. So I've had some people say, yes, you can look around the yard, with your metal detector. And you can keep, they'll even say, you can keep everything that you find. I just want to see it, because I want the excitement of seeing what came out of my yard. And those types of people are just super nice. I mean, wow, they're deliberately saying up front that not only can you look, and I want to see everything, but you can also keep it too. So that's a really nice thing. And if somebody tells you that, I would say it's sort of customary to be nice and, offer to share some of the finds with them if they're interested or something. Or if you're like me and you like the historic value and like to make collections of things and keep a lot of the stuff you can dig up, sometimes I keep sort of, let's call them like placements in my car. So like they'll ask to see, and like say I find like some wheat pennies and a silver dime or something, I'll have some wheat pennies and some silver coins in my car, and I'll be like, hey, I found all these coins and stuff in your yard, and they're really dirty and you can't tell what's on them because most of the wheat pennies look like crap. So I'll be like, hey, I got a few coins that are pretty much almost, like new. They're in pretty good shape, and they're what the coins looked like before they were dropped. So, if you want like some representations of what I found, just, they're yours, take them. So I've offered, people things that way, and they've really appreciated that, because I've actually found that homeowners usually, a lot of them have zero interest in coins, and I'm like a coin collector. So if I dig up like a silver dime or some old wheat pennies, they don't care. They don't care at all. But then if I find like a big relic or a big toy car or like a cap gun or just any kind of interesting relic, they look at that and they're like really excited. So a lot of people may say like, I'm just hoarding my coins and I'm unreasonable with the homeowners, but it's actually that they're more interested in the relics. So I either offer them sometimes representations of coins they found, or actually the relics, because they're more interested in them. I've had very few instances where people actually wanted to split the coins that I dug up with them. So I went a little bit off there. So sometimes when people say yes, there are once in a while somebody that says yes, just because they're a little bit passive and they really just don't want to tell you no. Now this is pretty rare, and after you've been door knocking for a long time, I want to start by saying that there's not a whole lot of wiggle room with people that you're going to sway toward yes. Probably at least, I want to say at least 80% of the time, or at least around 80% of the time when you knock on somebody's door, regardless of what you say, they're going to say yes or they're going to say no. So like even if you're nervous and you kind of botch it a little bit, and they still may say, yes, because they're really nice people and they just realize that you're nervous. And then there's some people that no matter how perfect your presentation are going to say no. And there's probably maybe 20% of people that they really haven't made up their mind when you knock on their door, and by discussing with them, you have that window of opportunity to influence their decision, which I found that it's best to not first pop the question, like knock on the door, hey, do you mind if I look through the yard with a metal detector? No, it's more like, my name is so-and-so, this is what I do as a hobby, and try to go into it really slow, and then frame it in a way of like that you're almost like trying to ask them a question back, and have a more of a conversation where you want to keep talking with them before you really spring anything. And then sometimes when people haven't, if you can tell they haven't made up their mind yet, before you you put the question out there, but before they even respond, you can tell they're thinking. Then you just kind of go back into chatting with them again, because it's kind of like a kind way to give them more time to think without making it seeming like you're pressuring them. And it's just over time you get better at it. You get more calm about it and just are willing to just relate to people and be relaxed about it, and give them the time to kind of figure it out and ask you questions. And if in the end they say, I don't think it's a good idea, or no, I don't want you looking around, say, hey, anyway, thanks for your time, I really appreciate it, have a good day, and just go on your way. Just make the whole thing a pleasant experience. I've even had times that I was so kind to people that I've asked them the question, can I metal detect your yard? They've said, I don't think that's good idea, or no. And then they'll keep talking about like older places or this place down the road, or they'll keep talking about it. And then 5 minutes later, they'll be like, well, are you going to look around the yard? And I'm like, well, so it's some people, if you can just keep that open dialogue and they're friendly, they even change their mind in the course of talking with you. So back to the point I was making is there is a pretty rare experience of sometimes people will say yes, but they only say yes because they're just not as, like I said, like I was when I was younger. You just you have a hard time telling people no. So sometimes they'll say yes, and then those types of people, I try to just be friendly with them and say, oh yeah, I don't cause any problems. I'm just looking for some old coins and relics. And normally you can make them they can kind of warm up to the idea, but some of them, may just say yes because they don't really want to say otherwise. That normally doesn't happen. So you will have instances where once you start metal detecting, people will change their mind. It's very common to get permission, from, like the husband, and he's like, yeah, go ahead and look around. And then 10 minutes later, after you're out in the yard and you start digging, some small, plugs in that, they'll come back out and they'll be like, oh, the wife doesn't want you here. I have to ask you to leave. That's happened to me. Oh boy. It's more common than you think. That's probably happened to me at least like 7 or 8 times. It does happen. There's been small windows of opportunity where I can tell that somebody didn't want to say no, but they didn't want to say yes. And if you're a really confident person, you can say, oh yeah, it's not a problem. I'll keep everything, really neat, and I'll be out of here in an hour or so. And you just present to them and like, I'm just in this for a hobby and I'm doing this and I really love to do it. And it's like, yeah, so it's almost like you're kind of projecting that. You're kind of easing their mind because there is some sort of influence going on there. So the more you door knock, if you're in the right frame of mind and you're really outgoing about it, you can increase your percentage of yeses just because of your outgoing nature and your confidence, because people do pick up on that confidence level. And if you have really low self-esteem when you go door knocking and you're kind of hanging your head and you don't want to look at the person, and you kind of sat in your car for a while, and it's just like a weird, awkward thing, they may be thinking, this is kind of strange. Maybe this person is just kind of casing the place, and maybe you give off the wrong vibes. That's one tip that I give people. When you are going to go to somebody's door, you have to have your mind up made before you step foot on their property. Don't hesitate if you have to pull off the side of the road, if there's off-the-road parking, or in their driveway. It doesn't matter. As soon as you park and turn your car off, that's one thing. Turn your car off. Don't leave it running, because it just, I don't know. It just makes it seem like, I don't know, you're not trying to connect with them, like you don't really care or something. I say turn the vehicle off. Turn it off. Get out of your car immediately. Walk up to the house. Don't hesitate. Knock on the door. Take a few steps back. Give them space. If there's steps, I actually like to even go down 1 or 2 steps. Is just a way to show that you're not towering over the person. Like you're just kind of, trying to be really nice about this. You're letting them have the upper hand. You realize it's their property. They don't owe you anything. They don't have to say yes. So you knock on the door, you take several steps backward, keep your hands in front of you, and, just wait patiently. And if they're home, if you do, 2 or 3 sets of knocking, like 2 or 3 different times, and they heard, if they don't answer, then you just leave. But, you give them time, you knock a few times, and just wait, like maybe 30 seconds, and then do it one more time. And if they answer, just kind of go right into it, and, just be, I one of the things I do too is I wear brighter colors to show people that I'm outgoing, and just try to relate to them. If they say no, just obviously, leave in a very, very quick manner, say, thank you and have a good day. But apart from that, asking questions is a really important part of treasure hunting in a lot of areas, especially a lot of areas in the country here in the United States, where a lot of the public property where it is permissible to metal detect, especially, I'll just talk about my area. I won't talk about anybody else's area. Here where I live in Tennessee, people have been metal detecting most of the public property here for decades, and there is very little left to find here on public property unless you are strictly looking for modern jewelry and change. That will always replenish over time. But if you're looking for old stuff, you're going to have to start asking people questions, and how far you want to go with that just depends on your confidence level. There are methods that some people could consider over the top. For a while, I was contacting some realtors and asking about, properties that are run down where you think you might be able to get permission. And I actually have gotten permission from certain realtors before that reached out to the people selling the homes. And from some realtors I've contacted where they were actually listing for like family members. But I did find when it comes to realtors, they are trying to do a job, and you get an extremely high rejection rate when you're cold calling realtors. Now, if you have like a realtor that you work with personally, that's a different story because the avenue's open there and that relationship is open. But when you're cold calling realtors, I found that you'll get a non-response or a no. Even like the realtor will tell you no because they'll just say like, I don't think my client would like that. It's a way of trying to brush you off. Like, I don't want to be the middleman. I found with cold calling realtors, you're going to get a no, I would say at least 80% of the time. And then even the times the realtor does, they will agree to contact the homeowner for you. Then since there's a middleman and that homeowner doesn't get the chance to contact you directly, then if the realtor says yes, then even the person that's selling the house usually ends up saying no. And it's a really tricky thing because the realtor can't give out their information. So the best you can hope for is say, hey, don't ask them, if you're willing to do this for me, here's, my number, have them call me. And that's one thing that plays into door knocking also. You'll find that most of the time, if somebody answers the door that isn't the authority figure, and I ask them, hey, can I metal detect? And they're like, oh, hey, I have to ask this person or that person. I normally say, oh, yeah, let them come out. I'll talk to him. But most of the time, a lot of people don't want to deal with it. So they kind of go back in the house and they'll be like, hey, so-and-so wants to look in the yard, wants to search for the metal detector in your yard. And then sometimes you can hear them or not. And they'll be like, no. So it's like anytime you can't deal with someone directly, you're just going to get more no's. So some people would say, if you're getting an 85% rejection rate from cold calling realtors, some people would say, well, if you're getting rejected 85% of the time, then that's probably something that you shouldn't be doing. Once again, that's a question you'll have to ask yourself. I won't answer that. But then for me in door knocking, I kind of have it up to, if I'm selective of the door knocks, and I'm not selecting well manicured lawns, and I'm picking them strategically of people that have, lawns that aren't, overkept to a T, and I'm doing it, in areas that are, I would say generally low crime areas, because in areas that there's really, really bad crime, everybody has their blinds down. When you knock on somebody's door, a lot of those people, they're just fearful because they live in an area that's not very safe. So when you're staying to areas that are generally safer, and you are not picking lawns that are meticulous, where you can just obviously tell somebody won't want you digging, then I have a success rate of about 70%-ish of the people saying yes. So if 70% of the people are telling me yes, I can metal detect in their yard, then to me that's saying, I'm not engaging in an activity that's too uncommon or, say, intrusive. I know some people that say door knocking is intrusive and that's why you don't door knock. Now, I'm not saying I'm absolutely 100% certain that I'm not being intrusive, or I'm saying that if you door knock, you are being intrusive, but that's the only evidence I would put out there. If 70% of people are telling me yes, then to me that's not being intrusive. It's just engaging in a voluntary transaction, asking a question, and if they say no, you're respectful and you leave. And if they say yes, that's awesome. And I've made friends. I've had people cook me breakfast, offer me something to drink. I've gone into people's houses and talked with them for an hour before I started metal detecting. They've invited me into their home and we shared, stories and different stuff about history. So, if somebody invites you into your home or wants to cook you breakfast, I would hardly say that you're being intrusive to them. So I just put that out there. I just use that as a way to encourage people. And I'll just say this, I don't want to come against people, but I will say sometimes it's the attitude. And if I look at me at the past and the things that I wouldn't ask people, it would be easy for me to say, well, you just shouldn't ask so many questions because it's easy. And I do see that some people try to paint door knocking in a bad light. just because that they are uncomfortable in doing it, and they have to look at other people finding all kinds of amazing stuff. So it's sometimes you can see a little bit of a selfishness there. It's like, wow, they really gripe on people that door knock and find all this good stuff, and they're the miserable metal detectorists that metal detect the same park every day of their life, just looking for like the next penny if they're fortunate. And there's only so many certain areas, there's only so many times you can metal detect a location and keep finding stuff, unless you found an amazing honey hole or something. Generally, if you want to find good stuff on a continual basis, generally you have to get out and network with people and find new locations. And a lot of the time, if you live in an area like I do, it's going to come from private permissions. It's private permissions that are my bread and butter. If I did not door knock, if I did not find unique ways to get permissions, I have some other tricks up my sleeve, but we're talking about door knocking right now. But if I did not resort to these tactics, I would not find even 10% of what I find currently. And that's part of my story. I did pretty good on public property and scouting every public spot I could find over the years, and I got to a point in the area that I lived in that I just couldn't find good stuff anymore. I almost completely stopped finding, rings and silver coins, and I just find a little bit of modern change at that, and a lot of trash. And I kind of almost gave up on metal detecting because I couldn't find anything anymore. And it wasn't because I wasn't trying for the metal detecting. It's just that I didn't have the guts to go out and network with people and put myself sometimes in situations that weren't always comfortable. So it's not an easy thing to do. You just have to keep building that skill. It takes time. The same thing for me. Some people, it comes natural and they'll just go knock anywhere and they don't care. I'm still not like that. It actually still takes a bit of courage for me to get up and get into the motivation to do it. And there's a lot of days where I just want to metal detect and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just don't want to go door knocking today. And it's a real thing, and you're not going to feel like doing it all the time. And if you're really not feeling like it, I would say, sometimes just don't, because you don't want to put yourself out there, and being miserable. And I go through spells where I'm just really into the zone, and I'll go out and do a lot of door knocking. But I will say that when you meet a lot of people, or like when you get your first couple yeses and the people are nice and you find a lot of cool stuff and you have a good time, you're like, wow, why didn't I do this sooner? It's kind of like the risk and reward thing. Once you get that first bit of that reward, you're always going to remember it. Even if you kind of slink back and you stop doing it, you're always going to remember about that time that I knocked on someone's door and they said yes. And sometimes the beginning periods are crucial. Like if you get the first 3 no's, it would be easy to quit. I could say that I was fortunate. In the first door that I ever knocked on, I was extremely nervous, but I got a yes on my first door, and I was like, wow, if I was really nervous and I kind of screwed that up and I got a yes, then maybe I'm onto something here. And it was a long journey since then. I even kind of slinked back from it because I had moved away, and the area that I moved to, I wasn't comfortable. That's when I moved south, and the culture was different, and I was just really uncomfortable doing it. And also I lived in a very high crime area, so I just completely wrote it off. So I'm not telling everyone that they have to or they should door knock. I'm just telling you that it is something that you can do in the right circumstances, and you can build that confidence, and you can do it. Apart from that, just add in that just think about that, about asking questions. What is wrong with asking someone a question? And we live in a world, in a lot of areas of the world, where free speech is coming under attack. And there are a lot of groups of people that want to silence you, and they want to say that you should not ask this question, you should not ask this question, you're a mean person if you ask this question, and you should ask these questions and you shouldn't ask these questions. And there's a lot of people in this world that want to tell you how to live. And I know what the motivation is coming from. that when I ask someone a question, and I don't like when people tell me that you shouldn't be asking questions. If I didn't ask questions, I wouldn't have done all the amazing things that I've done in my life up until this point, and started multiple different businesses, and started putting out content on YouTube that not all my subscribers at first were open to, because my channel started on a specific topic of metal detecting, and when I started to branch out of that, I had a lot of people that tell you that you shouldn't start doing other things. You shouldn't start putting up discussion videos. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see it. But ultimately, when you're not trying to force someone to do something, it's a voluntary transaction. Somebody watching your video, they don't have to pay any money to click on my video. I'm not promising anything. You don't have to stay here. And at the core of it in my life, if I wouldn't have kept asking questions, and in business kept asking people questions, knocking on people's doors, asking questions, that's what's opened up the door for me to expand into things, into goals that I really wanted to reach and I really wanted to achieve. In order to do that in life, you're going to have to start asking questions. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope it was educational, practical, and also sort of uplifting to give you some confidence. If you like this video, let me know. Let me know. If everybody doesn't like this video, I definitely won't make more of them. But if you do like it, maybe that's, a reason for me to do more discussions or chats like this on various topics. Maybe you can put some recommendations below on something you'd really like to see me dive into. I obviously didn't talk about all the points and trips and trips. Oh, this video's gone too long. Tips and tricks of, door knocking, but I went into the basic underlying psychology that I wanted to get into on it. So if you have any ideas for other topics you want me to just discuss openly in my opinion on and my experience with, comment below, and maybe I'll pick one of them up and do a video on it. So that being said, if you made it through the 41 plus minutes of this video, I would say you're a loyal subscriber, and I really do appreciate you for that. So thanks for watching, take care, and I'll talk to you guys soon.